Hello there, duelists. The banish mechanic, or remove from play if you're from back in the day, has existed since the dawn of Yu-Gi-Oh, with most of the aspects revolving around banishing being from the graveyard. But what if a deck just banished directly from the deck? To answer that, we have a Metaphys on the playmat. Sprinkled with a healthy dollop of Nemesis, these ethereal worms aim to banish as much as possible, and accrue huge advantage from that going forward to overwhelm the opponent. So let's go walking through the Astral Plane and find out what these spirit dragons are capable of. Okay, so let's get into the worms. So first up, Metaphys Ragnarok, and this is the one that's kind of different from the other Metaphys cards. Most of them revolve around getting banished or having an effect when they're summoned by the effect of a Metaphys card. So Ragnarok's a bit different. He's going to be a starter, and I'll kind of go one of our few normal summons of the deck. When he's summoned, you can banish the top 3 cards of your deck, and he gains 300 attack for each banished Metaphys card. If you inflict battle damage, you can special summon a level 5 or higher Metaphys monster, but it's banished during the end phase of the next turn. They're quite time-lapsey, is the way that I'd say it. A lot of them get their effects during the standby phase after they've been banished, and you know, they all get banished during kind of like the next turn after they were summoned and stuff like that. But yeah, Ragnarok's crucial and a really good way of getting like the ball rolling. We're running 2 Metaphys Nephthys. So like I said, this guy's got an effect when he's banished. During the next standby phase, you shuffle him from the banish zone into the deck, and I think that bit's a cost, and then you can add a Nephthys card, not a Nephthys, a Metaphys card from your deck to your hand. And he's not once per turn. In fact, none of the Metaphys cards are. So, and if he's summoned by the effect of a Metaphys card, you can banish all set spell and trap cards. Metaphys Daedalus. So he's very similar to Nephthys in that if he's during the next phase, next standby phase, after he's been banished. Jeez, I'm saying that over and over again. You can banish a Metaphys card, and if he's summoned by effect of a Metaphys card, you can banish all special summon monsters. So again, pretty solid, effect, and it's non-targeting, non-destruction. Super good way of getting rid of monsters. From there, we've got a Metaphys Tyrant Dragon. So if he's banished during the next standby phase, you can shuffle him into the deck in order to special summon a Metaphys monster from your hand. If he's summoned by the effect of a Metaphys card, he's unaffected by trap cards and can attack twice if the first attack was on a monster. And then finally, for our Metaphys kind of monster lineup, we've got 2 Metaphys Decoy Dragon. Look at that wall of text. Helpfully, it's actually the same effect twice, just on the pendulum effect and also on the monster effect. So basically, if a monster is targeted for an attack, you can target a banished Metaphys or a Metaphys monster in your graveyard, banish Decoy Dragon, that's either from the Pendulum Zone or from the main or from the Monster Zone, and then special summon that Metaphys card from your graveyard or your banish zone. He's also got an effect where during the next standby phase, after he's banished, you can special summon him. And I think that one is a once per turn, so you can't special summon. So if 2 of them are banished at the same standby phase, you can't summon both of them. So that rounds up our kind of Metaphys element. From there, we've got our Nemesis element, and we've got 3 Nemeses Flag, which I found kind of like is the most generic and kind of best one to kind of get your ball rolling. So all the Nemesis cards can target a banished monster and then shuffle that into the deck to special summon them, but it can't be themselves. So Nemesis Flag can't shuffle in a banished Nemesis Flag, if you get what I mean. And then each of them has kind of like I suppose an accrusion effect, kind of like a resource gaining effect. So Nemesis Flag is you can add a Nemesis card from your deck to your hand. Nemeses Corridor, we're running 2 of, and we're running 1 Nemeses Umbrella. So these guys are very, very similar. Shuffle to special summon themselves. Nemeses Corridor can target a banished Nemesis monster and add it to your hand, and Nemesis Umbrella can target a Nemesis monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. I found these guys are just a really good way of putting monsters on board, and with the amount of banishing that you're hopefully going to do, it means you can kind of monster spam these out, because none of them kind of rely on that normal summon. We're running 2 more Nemesis cards, so I'm running 1 Nemeses Keystone and 1 Nemeses Protos. Archnemeses Protos, should I say. So, Nemesis Keystone's got a very similar effect for special summoning, and then if it's banished, and it was banished this turn, during the end phase, you can add it back to your hand, so it's a good way of kind of keeping card advantage. And then finally, we're running Archnemeses Protos, so this is completely different. You can special summon it by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes from your field or from your graveyard, and then you can declare an attribute and it destroys all monsters of that attribute. He can't be destroyed by card effects, so he can't kill him himself. And then also, neither player can summon monsters of that attribute for the rest of the turn. And then finally, we've kind of got our kind of banish generic supports, should I say. So, got 3 Aloof Lupine, so, banish card from your hand to banish a monster of the same attribute and type, I think it is. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, whatever. Same type as that monster, damn it. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Most of the time you're aiming to, either do a Metaphys card or you're aiming to do Necroface. Spoiler alert, we are running Necroface. And then if he's destroyed by battle, you can add one of your banished monsters back to your hand, which doesn't really come up, but again, the banish effect is super solid, and it banishes from hand for cost, which is really great because it means it can't really stop it. From there, we're running 3 Necroface, so this guy's got a normal summon effect where he shuffles all banished monsters into the deck and gets 100 for each, but you really, really don't want to be doing that. What you really want to be doing is banishing him, or removing him from play. So if he's removed from play or banished, then you can remove from play the top 5 cards of both yours and your opponent's deck. So you get a lot of cards banished that way, so it's a really good way of getting the ball going. And then finally, we're running 3 Dimension Shifter as our kind of free hand trap. So if you've got absolutely nothing in your graveyard, you can send it to your graveyard, and then until the end of the next turn, everything that would have been sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So it's a really solid kind of like disrupting card. It's just a bit of a shame that you can't kind of use it after the first turn. So, onto the spells and traps. As you can probably tell, there was quite a lot of monsters there, so this is a reasonably short section. We're running 3 Left Arm Offering, so banish 2 or more cards from your hand to add a magic from your deck to your hand. And then you can't set cards the turn that you activate this effect, which is not after you just can't set cards, which can be a bit of a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. From there, we're running 2 Asymmetaphys, which I'm never going to be able to get that right properly, but this guy is an interesting card. I was running a 3 for a while, but once per turn you can banish a Metaphys card from your hand, which gets kind of the ball rolling, and if you do, draw a card. And then once per turn, if your Metaphys card in its owner's possession is banished, apply this effect. So if a Metaphys card is banished, apply the effect depending on whose turn it is. If it's your turn, all monsters on the field lose 500 attack and defense except Metaphys cards, and if it's your opponent's turn, you change the battle positions of all monsters on the field except Metaphys monsters. Both of those rarely make any sort of difference. It's more the banish to draw. From there, running a couple of one-offs. So I'm running 1 Gold Sarcophagus, kind of like as our left arm offering target. 1 Summoning Curse. So this is an interesting card. I'd never really read it until fairly recently, but when a monster is special summoned, the controller chooses 1 card in their hand and removes it from play. And then during the end of each end phase, you pay 500 life points or destroy this card. It's a good way of kind of like halting your opponent, or at least kind of trying to make sure that they're breaking even on card advantage when they're special summoning. And then finally the 1 Dimensional Fissure. And then we're running a few traps. We're running 3 Metaphys Ascension. So discard 1 Metaphys card to draw 1 card, and then you can banish a Metaphys monster from your deck. But more importantly, if it's banished, you can add a Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, which means that Daedalus and Nephthys both effectively do the same thing, because you can banish Metaphys Ascension in order to just add a card from your deck to your hand. The downside is that Metaphys Ascension is that effect is only once per turn, which is, well, in fact, both of them are only once per turn, which is a little bit sad, because it means that if you get a few banished, you lose out on that card advantage. And then finally, the Macrocosmos for that time where you get super lucky and manage to draw it. Okay, so on to the extra deck, and I would say the extra deck's kind of fairly flexible in this. I think a lot of your answers to problems mostly come from the main deck, but it's always good to have a bit of a toolbox. So I'm running 3 Synchros, I'm running 1 Metaphys Horus, 1 Draco Berserker, and 1 Borreload Dragon. So Metaphys Horus is probably the least common out of these 3. Against effects based on the monsters that are used for its Synchro summoning. So for a normal, it's unaffected by other effects this turn, which obviously we can't do because we're not bringing in normal monsters. If it's an effect monster, then you can target a monster your opponent controls and negate that monster's effects until the end of the turn. And then finally, if you use a Pendulum, a monster, your opponent chooses a monster and gives you control of that monster until the end of the turn. So it's a reasonably flexible card. You don't that often go to it, but it's nice to have it there. Draco Berserker is obviously a banish if a monster effect is activated, and also gains attack and can attack twice. And then the Borreload Dragon, I think you could definitely swap it out for something else, but I like the option of being able to go to, kind of like a generic negator. And then we're running a few XYZs, so we're running Evilswarm Exciton Knight, number 41 Bagooska, the Terribly Tired Tapir, and a number 60 Dugares, the Timeless. So Exciton Knight's kind of our, board wiper or equator if we're in trouble. Bagooska can be reasonably good if you can sit on it for going first turn. It's still got a real solid, kind of like floodgate type effect. And Dugares is kind of like our utility club if we need to special something back or get a few extra draws. It's just generally a reasonable card. And then we're running a bit of a beat stick package in number 39 Utopia and the corresponding number 39 Utopia the Lightning. So you go Lightning on top of Utopia, you can detach, make that 5,000 and beat over something. It's just a bit of flexibility, and again, you can definitely take this package out should you not want it. From there, finally, we're running a number of link monsters. So running one IP Masquerena, one at Knightmare Phoenix and Unicorn, correspondingly to kind of go along with the, the IP Masquerena classic. Make IP Masquerena, and then during your opponent's turn, go to Unicorn for that kind of spin, disruption. For another link 3, we're running one Topologic Trisbaena. So if a monster special summon to a zone this card points to, you banish as many spells and trap cards and that monster as possible. And if you do inflict damage to your opponent for each one, it's not bad. It's a good way of clearing spells and trap cards and stuff like that. And then finally, we're running a few link 4. So we're running one Appaloosa. So obviously gain negates for the number of monsters that you've used for its summon. Borreload Dragon. I just wanted a few other cards that could kind of get rid of stuff without having to target. And then finally, kind of the monster that I end up going to the most, I'm going to move this over to the side here, get out of here. Second Fiddle Appaloosa, 2, Topologic Zeroboros. So this guy gains attack equal to the number of banished cards. So it gains 200 attack for each of the number of banished cards. So if you use Necroface a couple of times, this guy can get really, really big, which is hilarious. And he's kind of just, if you just swing in, you can sometimes just swing in over the top of a big monster for game. And equally, he's got an effect that's a bit like Topologic Trisbaena, where if a monster's summoned to a zone he points to, you banish all the cards on the field and then he comes back during the next standby phase. Okay, so wrapping up. Metaphys are really a deck of two halves, and more than just the Nemesis half that I've added, where in one duel you'll banish everything absolutely perfectly, draw the best Nemesis for the situation, and completely crush your opponent. And in another duel, you'll fail to make anything play, you'll banish nothing, and then your recovery will be a topped deck Dimension Shifter. This makes grading the relevance quite hard, but the way that I've taken it, in order to determine the meta relevance, the additional kind of randomness of banishing from the deck means it's inherently just more inconsistent. So with a heavy heart, I've just got to mark it down for that. So after some deciding, it's a 2 for relevance. However, that randomness is sure fun and very entertaining. So in terms of fun factor, the thing that brings the fun factor up is the thing that brings the meta relevance down. So I'm going to go for a 4. No duel is ever really the same, and there are loads of options with lines to play during each individual duel. And when it comes together, you really feel like the king of games himself. What I would say as well is the deck is actually fairly budget, and it's got quite a high power ceiling, so I mean you could make it even cheaper by cutting some of the more expensive cards from the extra deck. But with this exact build, I've estimated at about $125 from TCG Play. So what do you think to Metaphys? A meta contender? Or just a worm deck that fizzles out? Thanks for watching, and check out the channel for other videos.